Hi guys, how's it going? Welcome to our weekly recap video. Every Monday we've been taking the previous week's videos and gathering up questions that we can answer for you guys. I've really enjoyed these videos because I think it's a really good opportunity for us to learn from each other, because you guys make some really good points in the comment section, really good suggestions, and you have good questions. So I've been loving it. It's also a really good opportunity for us to talk about any upcoming events, which I've got a couple that I want to mention today. And then we're going to add something extra to the end of these Monday videos. If we receive any packages from you guys throughout the week, we'll just do a little mini mail time at the end of each one of these videos. That way I can get things opened. You guys will know that everything arrived, and it's really fun. And it also eliminates a big pile of boxes kind of forming somewhere in our house. So anyway, first couple of things I wanted to talk about are some events coming up. So we will be at the Great Big Home and Garden Show in Cleveland, Ohio on February 8th and 9th. I will be doing some sort of presentation on each of those days, and there will be a meet and greet. All that information can be found on our website, so it's gardenanswer.com/events. You can click the link on our website and it will take you to the flower shows or garden shows homepage to buy tickets. The second thing I wanted to talk about was our Garden Answer Gathering event, which is happening here in my hometown. We've been talking to you about it every single week. I'm really looking forward to it. There are 3 separate events that weekend. The first one is a longer event. It starts on the evening of the 4th and then spans over the next 2 days, so the 5th and the 6th. And then there are 2 shortened versions of that event that are happening on Sunday the 7th. So again, all that information can be found on our website. I would recommend, if you are interested in going, that you go to our website, click the link for the event you're interested in, and then it will take you to Eventbrite, which is where the tickets are being sold. You have to pre-register to buy a ticket, so I would do that step now if you're really interested in getting one, because it looks like it's shaping up that they may sell pretty quickly. They did last year. They sold in just a matter of minutes, which was something we did not expect. I have no idea if that's going to be how it goes this year, but I would just recommend, if you really want to come, which I hope you do. I'm so excited to meet you guys. I would pre-register so that when the tickets go live on January 25th at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, you will be able just to click purchase your ticket, and hopefully it's a lot faster of a process. So anyway, just wanted to mention those things. So now we can get into the videos. All right, first video was a huge pottery unboxing. Some are self-watering. So in that video, we got a huge pallet of pottery. It was, like, scale-wise, the biggest mail time we have ever done, or biggest unboxing. That pallet was full of just gorgeous, how many pots? Like
20,
a lot. Like, I've unboxed pallets like that at the garden center, but never at my own personal residence. It was so fun. So those were from Michael Carr Designs. In that load, there were a few traditional Michael Carr Designs, like regular draining containers. And then there were a few aqua pots by Proven Winners, which are a brand new self-watering container, the first ever in a ceramic container. They were designed by Jack Barnwell. Anyway, I'm super excited to try them all. Elena asked, new viewer, where does she live? I've actually seen that question quite a lot lately because our winter has been so dang mild. I mean, I was out harvesting carrots the other day, so I thought I would mention we live in Eastern Oregon, right on the border between Oregon and Idaho, like 67 miles away from Boise, Idaho. And we typically have harder winters than this. I think we're technically like a zone 7 winter right now, which is amazing. We have been getting snow in the mornings, and then it melts by the afternoon and it's like 40 something, and we can go outside and like be pleasantly working. So I've just loved this winter. So anyway, that's where we live. 3 years ago, we had 52 inches of snow and negative 17-degree temperatures, so you never know. We still have to plant like we live in a zone 5. Sandy said, hello from Massachusetts, just a general pot question. I'd like to put a tree in a pot like you have outside the chicken coop. Is the terracotta pot frost-proof? Does it need to be there for the tree to survive, or will any pot work? If it does, where do I find them? Do you have an online source you can recommend? So I will link those exact pots down below. Those are actually not real terracotta. Those are from Crescent Garden. They are plastic type of pot. They're I think those ones are double walled. So there's an air reservoir kind of inside that helps insulate your plant's root ball. My plants are doing great in them. They look pretty real, and they're better to keep outside for the winter. Of course, the more you can protect any kind of container from any kind of winter elements, the longer you'll have it. But that's just not reality for a lot of us. We like to plant evergreens in pots and enjoy them through the winter. Terracotta is probably the least best choice that you can have outside, because they tend to freeze and crack, and then you lose like big chunks off the side, which I have done that, and I still do that. I have boxwoods planted in terracotta in my vegetable garden. They're doing really good. Like, knock on wood, I'm not like a superstitious person, but anyway, I'm really hoping those maintain and keep doing well. Anyway, we'll link those pots down below. Next question was, if you put young small plants in pots, will they be able to reach the water? They don't have such long roots. So I did want to address that, because with the aqua pots, when it's kind of like our other self-watering containers that we've showed you, when you initially plant your pots, you do want to water them in from overhead to settle all the soil around the root balls, even though they've got this water reservoir down below, and you do want to water them in from overhead for just a little while the plants are just kind of getting established. And then after a short amount of time, you can stop doing that, and then they will start drawing up from the bottom. We will do more extensive videos on that exact subject when we get ready to plant. Erica said, do pots have to have holes for drainage? Some of my pots didn't come with holes. I would recommend that if your pots didn't come with holes, get some holes put in them. So you can buy a diamond tile drill bit. I have a like 1/2 inch size one out in the barn. If I ever have a container that's ceramic or something like that I need to pop a hole in, I usually use that diamond tile drill bit. We've done videos about how to do that before, and I make drainage holes because your plants will be so much happier. I do, however, sometimes plant, especially succulent arrangements, in non-draining containers or terrariums. It can be done, but I would recommend, if you are not a super seasoned gardener yet, I would probably skip those types of containers until you know maybe how to read plants a little bit better. It's still risky even if you think you know plants really well. Like, there's an occasion where I will lose a plant because my pot didn't have drainage. But anyway, drainage is best, and you can use like a metal drill bit for galvanized containers. We've done that in videos before, but anyway, yes. Megan said, did anyone else see someone walk by in the background? Is there staff on the property? So yes, in that video you saw Chris walk by in the background. I don't talk about it very often because I didn't know if you guys would be super interested, but we've talked about how we this last year have been able to have some help outside with things. Like, he helped tremendously with our Christmas lights, with mulching, with keeping up with general maintenance around the property, because there's no way we could do the amount of videos that we do and keep up with our property the size that it is. So we're super blessed to be able to have him. He is amazing, you guys. I'm so blessed to have his help outside. Mr. Laugh says, I think some are a little too modern for your home, but will it look different against the flowers? Yes, they always take on a little bit of a different look, a different vibe, depending on what you plant in them. But we don't plan on keeping all of those, because certainly like the bright red ones don't really go with our decor. I'm not a huge red person anyway in the garden, but usually when we get stuff like that, we don't want to try to keep it all ourselves. We like to share the love as much as possible. So we will most likely be planting up a lot of those and giving them to family and friends around so they can enjoy those pots. Anyway, but I am excited. I'm hoping that I get to personally plant every single one of those pots. Okay, so moving on to the next video, it was Waxed Amaryllis Update and Aftercare. And in that video, I just wanted to talk about my experience growing an amaryllis that has had its bulb encased in wax, because I was super skeptical about it, to be honest. Like, I know it's not a brand new thing. I think it's been happening for a little while, but I had never personally tried it. And they say the claim was that everything that bulb needs is inside this wax casing, and you don't have to water it, you don't have to do anything, you just let it bloom. And it worked beautifully. I had 5 total. Every single one of them bloomed beautifully. In fact, I still have blooming ones downstairs. So I wanted to show you one that was completely done blooming. I picked the wax off of it and I planted it, and it's just a total experiment, but apparently you can do that and they will still grow. So I will be giving you updates on that. And then I also talked about what my plan is with all of my amaryllis, because I planted like 30 some. I don't, like, the most amaryllis I've ever planted. And I've enjoyed them more this year than I ever have because I somehow ended up with varieties that span the different bloom times, because there are some that bloom in 5 weeks, some that take 12 weeks to bloom. And I ended up with such a vast array that I have had them blooming since about mid-November, and then some are just forming their buds now. So I will probably have blooms maybe even into March. That's a huge time to be able to enjoy blooms inside. Anyway, let's get into the questions. So Marc said, I took my amaryllis out of dormancy in October, and since then it has not created a bloom stalk or a leaf. If you pinch the top of the bulb, it's not mushy at all, and it looks healthy, and the roots do too. Is it normal? And I would say yes, it's normal, as long as the bulb doesn't seem like it's rotted or that it has dried out. If it's dried out, you'll notice it looks kind of sunken and like puckered. But if it looks like it's got the rigidity because there's moisture in it and the roots look good, I would just wait. There have been times where it has taken weeks and weeks for my Amaryllis to do anything, but it finally does. So I would just like wait it out. Francis says, when you plant these outside, will you still plant them with the top portion of the bulb above soil level? Yes. I still don't want soil and moisture to be getting inside the neck of that bulb, because whether or not you've got it planted inside or outside, the same thing can happen. It can rot out super fast. Next question kind of has to do with the same thing. John says, when you plant your Amaryllis outside in the landscape, do you have to worry or do something to protect water from getting down into the neck of the bulb? So I just wanted to address how we water outside. So inside, when you've got your Amaryllis in containers, it's super easy to direct the water just to the soil and, you know, avoid the neck of the bulb. Outside, we run everything by a drip system. There are some flower beds that still get oversprayed by sprinklers a little bit, so I'll make sure to be planting my Amaryllis in a flower bed that has drip system alone, so it's just getting water right at the roots rather than overhead. Peggy said, if I'm not planting my Amaryllis outdoors, should I move it to a larger pot? If so, when should I do so? So Amaryllis like to be pot bound. Typically, I would say that you could leave it in the same pot. That's what I've done for years. Unless you see that bulb kind of growing and taking up more of its space, I would probably just leave it alone. Dee said, love the bulbs. I have a side question. Did you make the wreath with the dried fruit? I had to go back and look at the video. I'm like, what wreath was behind me? Yes, I did make that wreath. I made it for our chicken coop, but I decided to bring it inside because I really liked it on that door in the back sun porch. We can see that when we walk up the sidewalk back to our the entrance that we use the most. And I loved having that wreath there because it did have a little candle, battery operated candle, and it was so sweet at Christmas time to see that. So there is a video on that. I will try to remember to link it down below. When you plant them, why would you not use bulb tone? Just curious, or why biotone would be better since they are technically bulbs. So I did talk about how I would be using biotone starter fertilizer when I plant my Amaryllis out in the flower bed to help bulk up their root system. And you could use either one. Bulb tone or biotone both work really great. So it just depends on what you have on hand. I'm going to use biotone because I want to try it out with these bulbs. It has worked so well for me with everything else I've planted outside that that's why I'm going to use it. It's good for the roots, and that's what I want to do. I want it to create strong roots, and I want the bulbs to get bigger because I want to have, like, in the end, these massive, healthy, colossal size Amaryllis bulbs that put on an enormous show. Eva said, I have two questions. First, I was given a couple of leftover tulip bulbs, and I don't know if I should plant them in a pot now or wait for next fall. Plant them now. Don't leave them out till next fall. Even if they don't perform, or, you know, they may produce leaves and no bulbs or no flowers, but you want to have them in the ground. If you don't put them in the ground, being out for that long, they will dry out. If you don't, what's the best way to store them? I wouldn't store them. I would plant them. Also, I'm currently growing hyacinth bulbs in water indoors, and I was wondering how to transition them to landscape planting for next year. So when I do hyacinths inside, I let them bloom, and they're so gorgeous. And then when their blooms are done, I cut off the bloom spike, and then their leaves are still there. We treat them just like any other bulb that blooms in the spring, like daffodils or tulips. You can plant them out at any point after they bloom because hyacinth bulbs are super, super tough. So as soon as you can get out and work the soil, you can take them outside, plant them, leave those leaves on though, because the leaves are what soak in the energy from the sun and feed the bulb to create a really good show for next year. So as those leaves start to yellow and wither, that's when you can remove them. Okay, next video was houseplant garden with the water feature. This was a really fun one for me. I just went and gathered up a bunch of really fun houseplants. I set out to make like a woodland garden, and it just kind of turned into a woodland / just houseplant mini garden. It was just a really fun way to get some planting in and get my hands in some dirt and create something fun. Haley said, love the little fox. Maybe I missed it. Where's the cord for the pump? Just behind the back. Yes, so there is a cord, that little pump in the water feature. I mean, the pump is like tiny. It's like 2 inches by 2 inches by 2 inches, this little cube, and then there's a cord that runs out the back of the water reservoir and then runs over the top of the soil out the back of the pot. So those type of things I do have to create that they can be like up against a wall or something, otherwise you would see that cord. Donnaline says, what kind of drill bit did you use for the rock? Are there any videos that cover drilling through rocks? So I did use the diamond tile drill bit, and we have done a video with that before. Do you know which video that's in? It wasn't a standalone, was it?
It was the 4th of July fair garden video.
So it was in a 4th of July miniature garden that I guess I did. I kind of remember that. Oh, maybe we'll link it down below. Okay. Marc, again, Marc is a question and asking machine this week. I love it. I was wondering if you have a drainage hole in the bottom. Actually, a lot of people ask that. That's why I included your question. I'm having a hard time finding a nice big container with drainage for a fairy garden. Is it mandatory to have them? It's best if you can have drainage, not 100% necessary. I've talked about that before, where if you don't want to have drainage, you have to just be super sparing with your water, and then use like a large syringe so you can direct just the right amount of water to the root ball instead of like saturating the entire garden. And that way you don't end up with a bunch of excess in the container. But the container I used in this fairy garden or miniature garden was a special one to me. In fact, it surfaced a couple of times throughout the years. I made a pumpkin house fall fairy garden when we still lived in our old house in this exact container, and then it's had succulents in it. It had portulaca in it last year. Anyway, my grandpa gave it to me. He's no longer with us, but he gave it to me years ago. I don't even know what he used it for. I think he had a bunch of nails in it, but I thought it was such a cool rusty old pan. There are 2 drainage holes that I drilled in the bottom with a metal drill bit. Did that come out right? I don't know. Sometimes I talk too fast and my words just go together. Anyway, so I did pop 2 drainage holes in that container, so the plants should be happy. Mary said, I love the idea of using a water feature indoors and in houseplants. I was wondering about fertilizing something like this. Do you fertilize everything the same? Do you spot fertilize or just skip it altogether? So if there are some plants that really don't like to be fertilized that often, like if I do a succulent/cactus fairy garden, typically, a lot of those I water with a syringe, so I can direct the fertilizer water. The succulents I do a little more often than cactus, so I can, just fertilize the succulents. The cacti might get a little bit of the fertilizer, but it's not like they're getting a solid, shot of it. But typically when I do like this arrangement with all the houseplants, I'll just use just a straight up, well-balanced indoor, maybe houseplant fertilizer. Do I have some in here? So I don't have a bottle of it in here. I thought I did. I need to go get more. But Erin will put a little bottle on the table right here so you can at least see what it looks like. But I'll just do that a lot of the time, so it's just like a general all-purpose fertilizer, and that way I can pretty much hit everything and everything stays happy. Let me mention that in mixed gardens like that, I don't fertilize as often. With houseplants, cactus and succulents, whatever, because I don't want them to put on a ton of growth. I want them to kind of sit there and be happy. Usually I get a year out of arrangements that look like that, whether it's cactus and succulents or houseplants, and I might fertilize like every other month instead of once a month, and that way it kind of keeps their growth a little bit more in check. Natalie says, can I ask, is this a certain type of pump that I would need, and does it matter if the plastic tub is slightly bigger? So it doesn't matter if the plastic tub is bigger, like your water reservoir. That would make it to where you don't have to fill it as often, but it takes up a lot of space in the planting reservoir. So I find like the smaller ones are just easier to manage. They're easier to plant around. I do have to fill that one every other day to keep it like all the way topped up. I could probably go every 2 days, but it would get a little bit on the low side. I would get, unless you're doing like this enormous garden, I would get the smallest pump you can find, because I had to put a rock over the top of that to deflect some of that water coming up, because there was no dial like to dial down the pressure, and that little thing kicks out a lot of water. Christina said, where do you find your figures? The little fox figure came from my parents' garden center. I actually got a raccoon too, because I wasn't sure what I wanted to use. They came on long stakes, so I just unscrewed the stake and used it as a miniature piece. The little gray fairy came from Joann's, and I think the little one that was on a stake came from myfairygardens.com. I don't know, I just pick stuff up randomly as I see cute stuff. What are you doing with water in the fountain when it goes dirty? How do you change it, or you don't? I don't find, especially with things that I'm filling up every other day, I don't find that it gets dirty very often, or like gets algae or anything, because it's not in the heat. It's inside where it's pretty, like, it maintains its temperature and all of that stuff, and there's not like junk flying in it from the wind. And when you get introduced fresh water all the time, I find that it just, like, I might clean it once every few months, maybe, but not often. It never starts to smell that I've noticed or any of that. So if I do clean it, it is a little bit difficult because I've got so much stuff around that fountain, like rocks and stuff. So what I would do is take the rock off the top of the fountain and let that pump shoot out as much water as it can, and I'll just kind of use my thumb and direct the water over to the plants. And it usually does a pretty good job emptying the reservoir, and then I just fill it up again with clean. Like, I might pop some of the rocks out and wash them, but it is a little bit of a fussy process to clean it when and if it does need it. Honey Hive said, Laura, you make so many fun mini gardens, and my favorite, your fairy gardens. What do you do with them all after you film? Do you keep them, give them away, sell? So I do like to keep them around for at least a little while, because you put the work into it, and it's usually really fun to just enjoy them for a little while. But I do like to put these gardens together. So a lot of time I'll keep them for a few months, and then I completely dismantle them and create something new. So a lot of times you'll see plants being used over and over and over again, especially cactus. You can really tell because cactus don't grow very fast. So you'll see this really cute cactus in a miniature garden where I've used succulents and cacti, and then you'll see it in the next one, and then you'll see it in the next one, because recycling plants is awesome. You know, if I don't use particular plants out of that garden that I'm dismantling, I repot them and I put them in here. You can see behind me, these plant shelves are full of plants that have been used in other gardens before. And when I get ready to do one, I'll just come up here and like kind of shop my shelves, and then I can put something together. It's just a really good way, like a cost saving way, just to continually repot your plants and recycle them basically. And then I can do a lot of propagating and stuff up here, so I can create my own plants for these gardens as well. Sometimes I do give them to my parents' garden center. Like we did a big garden in a suitcase. It was so fun. It was a fall fairy garden, gnome garden, I should say. And it was just like decked out with lit trees and stuff. And I'm like, this is a big garden. This is a big miniature garden. Where am I going to put this at my house? So we just took it down there and I just give it to my parents' garden center and they can do whatever they want with it. Is there a place to request a video? I'd sure like one on growing microgreens. Your last one is pretty old, and that is correct. Our last microgreens video was shot on our back patio in our old house, so we're due to redo that video at some point. This is a really good place in the comment section to request videos. We try to read all the comments. You can also email us. We read all the emails that come through. You can email contact@gardenanswer.com. Unfortunately, we don't have a chance to respond to a lot of those emails because we get a lot of emails from you guys. We appreciate all of them. We read them all and we do log away ideas like that. Jennifer said, I believe this is my favorite. I see that you used the seed pods that were gathered from the foraging video. I did. They look kind of like cattails. That was kind of what I was hoping for. Did you ever use the thistle? I was hoping to see how you would use it in an arrangement. When I read that comment, I was like, oh yeah, I have thistle out there. I forgot. I still have it out there, I think, somewhere in the same probably kangaroo pop-up bag that I put it in when we foraged, and I completely forgot it was there. Anyway, maybe I can think of a way to use it this spring. Dang it, thanks for the reminder. Okay, next video was on winter seed sowing, which is super exciting to me. So this is a method of growing seeds where you start them outside very early in some type of clear or semi-clear container, like I'm using water jugs that we have. You can use juice bottles. Some people use clear plastic totes. You essentially start these seeds in mini greenhouses of their own that you can pop right outside no matter if it snows or rains on them, all of that. A lot of people swear by starting seeds this way, and I thought, you know what, this is so great, because if this works, as it does for many other people, it eliminates the need for grow lights, which, you know, that they add up. It's expensive to get all set up with grow lights. It eliminates needing to have space in your house to dedicate to seed growing, and it can take over, especially for those of us who get a little bit carried away and want to start just flats of stuff every single winter. It'll take over your life for a while, and it will also eliminate the need to be as fussy with stuff. So when you've got seeds starting inside, you have to check them all the time. You have to provide like a fan so they've got some kind of wind blowing on them to make the seedlings stronger. They just dry out a lot faster. So I'm just hoping that this method is a lot easier and I get really strong seedlings. So I started them in the video, and then I plan on bringing you guys along for my whole journey through this. There's a lot of good information online. You can watch other people's videos where they have done this method. So I would recommend just like checking out what other people have done. That's how we learn. So April said, would this work for veggies too? Yes. So a lot of people start vegetables. I probably wouldn't start your really heat lovers this early. I'd probably maybe wait till next month, but like tomatoes and peppers, people do that. All kinds of squash and melons and all of that. So this is something that will just kind of like I'll gradually be trying more and more stuff. In fact, every time we get a new water jug that's empty downstairs, I get so excited because I'm like, which seed am I going to start in this one? My experience this year will be fairly limited. I'm not planning on doing all my seeds this way, just because I don't know what kind of success level I will have. But we'll have other seed starting videos where I do more traditional methods as well. Oh, Anita says, I was wanting to try this with the plastic produce containers I get from Costco. They're usually pretty roomy. Some accidentally got recycled, so I'll have to find more. Do you think they'd work as well? Yes. Do they need to have an opening on the top like the jugs? Yes, you do need to create a way for air to get out. So like with the milk jugs or water jugs or pop bottles, they're perfect because they are high. So once the seedlings start growing, there is room for them to grow for a little while. And then they've got that natural opening on the top where you can just take the cap off and throw it away. And that way you've got air exchange going on anyway. So I think you could use those for sure, as long as you create some holes on the top. Pluto content creator said, could I use a small greenhouse and have them in pots? Yes, so I'm going to be starting some seeds in our greenhouse as well. And the reason why, like, I think one of the comments was like, let me find it, hold on. Somebody said, simpler to use a cold frame, or am I missing something? So I did talk about how, yes, we have a greenhouse outside, but I wanted to try this method out, like, as if I didn't have a greenhouse, because not everybody does. I never did until we lived here. So I just wanted to see how it worked if you were to try it outside the whole time. So I will be starting some inside as well. I do still think that they need a dome, some kind of cover to create a little bit more humidity right around them, especially if you've got like a bigger space. I think it might be better for your seedlings in the very beginning stages of growth at least. Marlena said, sort of off subject, but does anyone know 100% what kind of gravel they have all over in their walking areas? So it's just called 3/4 chip. There are different colors available, like the one in our driveway is 3/4 chip in the color blue, which I love because it's got more of a cool undertone. We have such hot summers that if you use something that's got more orange and yellow and brown in it, it just looks hotter. So if we use something that's got more of like a blue-gray undertone, it just looks cooler. Anyway, that's all I know about the gravel. But the size is 3/4 inch chip. Mary said, so these will germinate in a few days and then outgrow the container in 2 or 3 weeks. Then what will you do with them? Repot and put in the greenhouse? No, so this method is a lot slower. They won't germinate as quick as the seed packet says because the warmth isn't there. You plant your seeds and they just kind of chill out. Like they just sit there and then they slowly start to germinate and come up kind of like they would if they were out in nature. You know, a lot of things self-seed outside. The plants like throw the seeds in the fall and the seeds just sit there until there's enough heat units to bring them up in the spring, and that's kind of the same thing that we're doing with the seeds out in the jugs. Bethany said, how do you determine where to purchase your seeds online? It seems like seed stores come a dime a dozen. How can you tell which are legitimate? I recently bought a bunch from Johnny's Seeds. I chose them because they had the most education and information about each seed. It took me quite a while to find them. I love to buy seeds from Johnny's Seed. It's one of my favorite places because of all the information they include. Like the packets arrive with no picture usually on the packet. It's like a white packet with all the information about the seed, and on the back side there is just so much growing information, and it's so detailed and so helpful that I appreciate that so much. So I order a lot from them. I'm going to be showing you guys all of mine here probably this week. I get some from my parents' garden center. They have an online presence now too. We'll link that down below. And they're just building up what they are offering online because they sell bulk seeds, and we have forever, like 300 plus varieties, I think. And it's just the most popular seeds that our area grows, and so I grow a lot of them here because they do so well for me. And I've ordered some from Eden Brothers, from Baker Creek. I find that the information on those packets are a little hit and miss. Sometimes I'll receive a packet with just the variety name with no cultivation instructions or anything. And so you have to either go to the website or something, and sometimes you don't even find it on the website, and that can be frustrating. So anyway, I feel ya. There are a couple really big websites that sell, but I think you're on a good track with Johnny's Seeds. Laura says, do you have any recommended places online to buy seeds, or do you suggest just visiting our local garden center? So, like I said, there are a few ones we'll link down below, like my parents' garden center, Johnny's Seeds, Eden Brothers, Baker Creek. I would visit your local garden center though and see what they offer, because a lot of times they will have appropriate things for your area. And you really could, especially when you're starting, you really want to make sure that you're planting things that like are tried and true in your area, because you'll have the most success. And when you're first starting, that's super important. You want to have success with what you're growing because that gives you confidence to keep on going and trying new things. So I would check with your local garden center first and then resort to online seed buying. Cheryl says, can you do geraniums and petunias the same way, or does it have to be perennials? No, you can do annuals for winter sowing. In fact, I started some sweet peas. I would probably, geraniums you might be able to start now because they can handle a little bit of cold. But petunias, I would maybe wait a little longer, maybe next month. I don't know. I'm like feeling my way through this whole situation. So I'll share my experience as we go. Somebody said, I see your breath. Aren't your hands freezing in that wet mix? Yes. My hands were like 2 giant ice cubes. I had to go in one time and get a refill on my coffee and warm up my hands. But I would much rather be doing that outside than inside because all the mess stays outside. So I will suffer through with cold hands. Carter said, love that coffee cup. Where can I get it? This is the one. I actually put my coffee in this morning just so because I knew this question was going to come up. I get asked this a lot. I got this at TJ Maxx ages ago. There is no information underneath, so I'm really sorry. Like, I don't know who made this. I don't know. Yeah, and I've had it for years. So anyway, TJ Maxx is a really good resource for really kind of fun looking coffee mugs. L. Leo says, beginner question, do you put all the seeds from those packets into the milk jugs, or are there more seeds in the little packets than you need? There are definitely more seeds in the packets than I need. I only I spaced my sweet peas out, I don't know, a couple inches or so. So there are a lot of sweet pea seeds in that water jug, but I still had a lot left over. In fact, I pre-soaked all of them, so I started some inside here. I've got them in a little tray right next to me, and I thought, well, it would be kind of fun to see the growth difference between the ones in here and the ones in the water jugs. But you will have some left over unless you want to plant up a whole bunch of jugs or containers with the same thing. Cindy said, will you plant the seedlings directly into the garden bed, or will you transplant into individual pots and grow this way? I don't know how it's gonna go. I'm hoping that I can just leave them in there until they're ready to be planted out, and then I can just separate them and plant them that way. If I have something that happens to get enormous and I need to separate and repot before they can really go outside and I need to put them in the cold frame, that's what I will do. Katie said, will you be starting the exact same seeds in the greenhouse to have a side-by-side comparison of growth? I thought that was a really interesting question, and that would be really interesting to see. It's kind of what I'm doing with the sweet peas, but I thought, you know what, I think I have, I've got extra of all the seeds that I have already started, so I might go ahead and start some inside if I have room. I have a lot of seeds I'm starting this year, and then we can kind of have an idea of the different growth rates and what the seedlings look like and which ones look healthier, etc. Linda said, may I ask what happens if it snows? Do you just leave them out there under the snow? Yes, and let it melt on top for the moisture. Won't the soil freeze though if it gets too cold? The soil will freeze. That should be okay. They can receive snow and moisture through the top. We here are a little bit weird. Like sometimes we'll get consistent snow in the mornings and sometimes it'll be dry for 2 weeks. So the idea with this is that you should be able to water them in initially and then not really need to water them until the seedlings emerge, because oftentimes, especially when it's this cold and if you're getting snow and rain, they stay moist enough. In our area, I'm going to be checking them probably once a week just to make sure, because we've had a lot of wind over the last couple of days, and even though they're like enclosed, I want this to be successful, so I'm going to just keep my eye on them a little closer. Once a week though is a far cry better than having to check them twice a day when they're inside. What a pain that can turn into. Kay said, can you do a seed maintenance video? How long they last? Can they be viable past an expiration date? How to store? Is there a way to test for viability? I have a ton that weren't stored in the best way. So I'm going to do a video kind of regarding my seeds. I'm hoping later on this week, and I'll hope to address some of these questions in that video. Last video was fixing a neglected houseplant arrangement and rerouting African violets. So I just wanted to show you an embarrassing houseplant arrangement that I had in my house. I showed it to you over 3 years ago. It was a container full of African violets and an orchid popped in there for good measure. And I just wanted to show you that life happens and we all have containers that just kind of run amok and we need to fix them. So I was just showing you how I deconstructed it, how I was rooting violets, which are right next to me, and they're looking really good. So far the orchid's looking a lot happier. Anyway, it was fun video for me because I really needed to get that done, and it made me feel so good that the plants looked so much happier when I was done. Jess said, can you do an update on the Fern terrarium? I actually meant to bring that upstairs with me and show you, so hopefully this week if I do a vlog, which I'm sure I will try to remember to pop that in the vlog and just show you guys what that terrarium looks like. It's still looking really good. Stephanie said, did you water your violets overhead this time because it was the first watering and to settle the soil? Yes, I did, and I didn't explain kind of my thought process behind that. Will the next water be from underneath? Yes, it will be. So ideally, I would have pre-moistened the African violet mix before I put it in the containers because it just helps just settle the soil and settle any air pockets that may form, because that happens sometimes, especially with dry, lofty soil. So since I didn't do that, I had to water them in from overhead to settle the soil down, which sometimes in cases like that, it'll create kind of a channel in the soil and you need to pack more soil in. I did not have to do that, thankfully. I was able just to kind of reposition some of the soil and it was fine, but that's why I watered from overhead. And then after I take these violets out of their little humidity bags, after they've rooted, I will put them in saucers and water them from underneath. Marc said, how do you propagate your African violets? Do you use the hormone powder? So I used to propagate African violets all the time, and I used to just use little like paper cups with a piece of plastic over the cup, and I'd pop a hole in the plastic and put the African violet leaf down in water. No rooting hormone at all. Sometimes I used it and most of the time I didn't, and I had really good luck. And then I also propagated them straight in soil, and I again had tried them with rooting hormone and without. Rooting hormone sped up the process just a little bit, but I didn't find that it made my success rate a whole lot like higher. So anyway, I use both the water method and soil method. We've never done it in a video, so that might be a good one to do at some point. There's probably videos out there though. I just haven't done one yet. Rebecca said, does your mom have a dedicated plant room as well? She does not at her house. I mean, you could consider the sunroom down at the garden center her dedicated plant room. She spends a lot of time in there. Candy said, do houseplants need their own pots? I received several plants that are combined in one pot. Should I repot them? I don't think it's necessary unless they look unhappy. You just want to make sure that when you're planting things together, which I do it all the time, I mean, take the miniature houseplant garden, for example, as long as these plants like the same kind of light, the same kind of water, same kind of treatment, then you should have really good success. In the miniature garden case, there are a few things that want a little bit more water, like the pitcher plant and the fern, but I can water those separately, and I know that those need different water, so I can treat them accordingly. So as long as you know the requirements of all the plants, you should be fine. Jackie said, is there a reason you cut these off at soil level rather than digging the plants up with the roots? So the reason I did that was because the stems had become so elongated that I really needed to like reboot the plant. I needed to cut that leggy stem off because I didn't want to perpetuate that, and then just reroute the plant so it was just nice and fresh and flat again, because you want your violets to have this certain look. You don't want them to be like all gangly and laying over the side of the pots like mine was. And that's it. That's the last question. So thank you guys for all the comments and all the questions this week. So now I'm going to move into a mail time. So I'm going to get my boxes up here real quick. Okay, I got to remember, I pre-opened most of these boxes so I didn't have to have a box cutter up here. So this first box, because it's big, is from Robin in California. It is, I don't know if you can see this whole thing. Is this too tall? Let me like hold it down like this. She said she thought it looked like my style. And this right here has got lights on it. I need to put some batteries in it. It's got a little battery pack on the back. But anyway, really cute Christmas ornament. So thank you, Robin. This is from Darlene in Utah. The card is a picture of our Hebe statue. How cool is that? Oh, I can get behind this kind of gift box anytime. Yogurt covered pretzels. Thank you, Darlene. Okay. This next box came from Shannon in Indiana. I have torn apart this box, and Benjamin got very excited about it. She works at the headquarters for Toyota forklifts, and she saw that we have them down at the garden center. She sent out this 2 little forklift toys that Benjamin stole, like right away. He was so excited. He's taken them to bed with him. Anyway, he loves them. So those were in this box. There's also a bag of dark chocolate moments, which I've already opened. I needed a moment one day last week. This was one of the boxes for the forklift. And then there are the most cute ornaments in here, garden themed. First one is a reindeer with garden rake for antlers. Next one is a coiled up hose with some garden tools, and then the hose has little lights wrapped around it. And then we've got a wheelbarrow full of presents. So cute. And then there's one fancy one for my great room tree. Look at this. Isn't that cute? Not cute, it's beautiful. One of my favorite things is to get ornaments like this after the fact, because it's something super fun to look forward to using the next year, like already knowing that you have a big bunch of beautiful ornaments to put out. So this is from Susie in Ohio. She said that we had a company's calendar made, and she thought I would like to enjoy it since I like everything flowers, and there are a lot of color blends, bulb photos in this calendar. I always go to my birthday month, April. Very pretty. Thank you so much, Susie. This is from Drew, who lives in Chicago, Illinois. He's 19 years old, and he thought I needed to have this for my tree. It's a Felco pruner ornament, which I actually have received, I think, 2 of these, which is awesome, because I'm going to have like a set for my tree, so I can like have a Felco pruner on every side of my garden themed tree. Wonderful. Thank you, Drew. And this next box is from Vicky in North Carolina. I did plow around in this box to look, because in her letter it said something about a poinsettia ornament, or an amaryllis, excuse me, ornament. Isn't that beautiful? I love the colors of it. Oh, don't roll off. Nope, 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 stay. Oh, a little bit different. Different varieties of amaryllis. So these are a little bit more red, a lot more red. This is from Denise. Denise in where? Where's Denise from? San Jose, California. She said in her letter that she wanted to add to my Santa collection. Look at this. I love this Santa. I'm kind of weird about the way Santa's faces look, and so I'm super picky about which Santas I add, and this one has a really pleasing face. Thanks, Denise. And last box is from Rosemary in Texas. She said, I made this cowboy Santa about 23 years ago. I used to top my son's Dallas Cowboy Christmas tree with it because it's a cowboy Santa. He's now 32 years old. And so she thought that maybe Benjamin might like a cowboy Santa for his own Christmas tree one day. And she enclosed a photo of it on her dining room tree, for example. Anyway, I just thought that that was the sweetest thing, like the history behind this Santa ornament. Let's see. And then the picture on how it was displayed. I just thought that that was the sweetest thing. So thank you so much, Rosemary, and for everybody who sent stuff this week. And I think this will be really fun. Like some weeks we may not have anything to open, and some weeks we may have a bunch of boxes like today. But I just wanted to let you all know we received it all, and I will treasure all of it. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Hope you all have an amazing week. Bye.